Today, we're going to show you how to cork like a pro without the need for any expensive accessories, tools, or gizmos that you may have seen on the internet or on Amazon. All you're going to need is a cork gun. You don't need expensive cork. Any cork will do. So a cork gun and a small piece of wood, which is just an offcut that you can find anywhere when you're doing some work. That's all you need to be able to cork like a pro. So the first thing, the first tip is that when you cut your cork open, make sure that you only cut a very small hole, because the smaller the hole, the less cork will be delivered and the less chance you'll have of having too much cork and making a real mess of it. So as you can see here, this is really tiny, a very small hole. So we just cut the very top of the end off, and that will mean that when we actually squeeze the gun and deliver the cork, that you only get a small bead, because it's much easier to add more cork if you need it than to remove cork, because once you've got a lot of cork between the skirting board and the wall, as you start to remove it, it's going to leave a residue all the way up the wall, and you don't want that. So that's your first tip, only a small hole. You then apply a small bead, and we'll now cut to see this in action.
Okay, now we've slowed this footage down a little so it's easier to see what's happening. Take the gun to the wall, and where the gap is between the skirting board and the wall, draw a very small bead across. You can see here he's had to stop halfway and click the gun to squeeze more cork out. Then with your finger, pull slowly across the top of the cork so that you're pressing the cork down in between the board and the wall, because that's the objective, is to fill that gap. So as you draw it across, make sure it's drawing a nice clean line all the way to the end. And now wipe your finger, make sure that you take all the excess cork off. As we said earlier, with a thin bead you may need to apply a little bit more cork. So anywhere where you think there's a gap or it looks a little too thin, just go back and put a little extra thin bead, and the emphasis is on thin bead. Then with your finger, draw it the other way, the opposite direction, and that means that you're pressing the cork both ways, and that's taking off absolutely all of the residue and making sure that it's firmly pressed down in both directions all the way along the skirting board. Now this is the key to getting the professional finish. Take the small piece of wood with the flat edge that we showed you earlier and drag that across the top. And what this is doing is this is giving it a really clean, crisp, sharp finish. The flat edge will be able to go in further than your finger did. You've already filled the gap between the wall and the skirting board, and what we're doing now is really just taking off the little bit of extra that your finger left on. You can see the difference here. If you look to the right, it's really sharp, thin line, whereas to the left, where we're still pulling it, it's got a much more higher level of cork. So do this slowly, because you'll need to pull the residue off and clean the little piece of wood every time you've gone a short way across. So as you see it building up, take the little piece of wood away and wipe it clean, because otherwise it could cause the wall to get slightly marked. But if you go back with the little piece of wood, it's going to give you that razor sharp, super first class finish that we're looking for. So, and it just, there's some fiddly bits, you may need to just go backwards and forwards if you feel. If you're going into the corner, don't push the cork into the corner, obviously drag it away from the corner so that you're pulling away any excess. So there's a little bit of fiddling around on the edges. If you've got any cork that you feel needs to be trimmed off, you can come the other way and then just come across again, just give it that extra finish to make sure that they've got absolutely all of the extra residue off there, because once it's done and once it's set, that's it, done for life. You don't need to do this again. So it's worth taking the extra bit of time.